I found out my mom slept with the love of my life, so I made them both pay. I, 26F, had always thought my life was messy but manageable. Even with my mom, 51F, in it. She had been divorced 3 times, and each marriage had ended with its own brand of drama. She could seem warm and charming, but that charm often came with its own hidden cruelty. Despite everything, I loved her in my own way. I just kept my distance. Then Scott, 28M, came into my life. He was confident without being arrogant, with a sense of humor that felt like it had been made just for me. Being around him made everyday moments feel meaningful, and I truly believed he was the love of my life. For most of our relationship, things felt steady and comfortable. We shared routines and small rituals, like morning coffee and weekend plans, and spent hours talking about work, family, and the future. I felt secure with him, like we were building a life together. But over time, I began noticing subtle changes in his behavior. He grew distracted, tense, and unusually protective of his phone. He would cancel plans with vague excuses, and even simple questions seemed to irritate him. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just stress from work. Then one day everything changed. While Scott was in the shower, a notification appeared on his phone. The contact wasn't saved with a name, just a single letter, K. And beneath it were 2 messages saying, "Are you still coming tonight? Don't let her know." I stared at the screen. Who was K? Why were they messaging him this late? Could it be work or just a casual friend? My mind raced, weighing whether I should just leave the phone alone or see what was happening. Part of me wanted to trust him, but another part couldn't ignore the doubt creeping in. Finally, I picked up the phone and opened the messages. At first, it looked like harmless chatter between coworkers. Vague plans, small jokes, nothing that seemed inappropriate. Yet the more I read, the more uneasy I felt, and soon it was obvious their familiarity crossed far beyond anything professional. Then I came across the photos. I could barely process what I was looking at. I scrolled through them slowly, trying to convince myself I was misreading the situation, that there had to be some alternative explanation. But as I moved from one image to the next, the truth settled in. Each photo stripped away another layer of denial until there was nothing left to question. It was my mom, her kitchen, her clothes, and the way she was posing made it obvious what was going on between them. A wave of shock hit me, but I forced it aside and focused on staying calm. I put the phone back exactly where it had been, making sure Scott wouldn't notice anything when he came out of the shower. A few minutes later, when he stepped out, I asked what he wanted for dinner, speaking as normally as I could. I needed time to think, to decide how to handle what I had just discovered. From that moment on, everything they did felt different, as if a switch had flipped in my mind. I started paying attention in a way I never had before. Their routines, the excuses they used, the gaps they tried to smooth over, all of it became part of a pattern I was finally seeing. Over the next 3 weeks, I collected every piece of proof of their affair I could find. I saved messages with dates and times. I kept copies of photos. I pulled short clips from the security cameras at my mom's house, choosing the ones that showed them coming and going together, when they thought no one was watching. Every night, I organized everything carefully because every detail mattered. During that time, I didn't confront them or hint at anything. Instead, I slipped into autopilot, replying to their texts, making casual plans, and behaving exactly the way I always had, so they wouldn't sense that anything had changed. The more I gathered, the more grounded I felt. There was no uncertainty left, no what if to second guess. I had collected everything I needed, and I was waiting for the right moment to act. That moment came when my mom's birthday approached. As usual, she had invited a large group of friends and family. While helping her plan, she mentioned wanting a slideshow to highlight her favorite memories. I immediately offered to put it together for her, acting excited about the idea. In reality, I carefully integrated everything I had uncovered about them into the presentation, arranging the images and messages to appear gradually so the truth would become undeniable to everyone in the room. When the day arrived, my mom looked radiant in one of her favorite outfits, clearly enjoying the compliments from guests. People mingled, glasses clinked, and laughter filled the room. I kept a calm exterior while double-checking that. My laptop was ready and connected to the main projector. Once everything was set, I started the slideshow. It began like any typical birthday presentation, with baby photos of my mom and snapshots of family vacations, all familiar memories that everyone recognized. Guests laughed at some of the more awkward moments, and I let the warm, familiar feeling settle over the room. Knowing it wouldn't last much longer, slowly the images changed. At first it was small things. Screenshots mixed in with normal photos, messages with vague hints. I could see confusion spreading across everyone's faces as they realized something wasn't right. Then more messages appeared, showing timestamps and locations. Audio messages followed, making it clear what Scott and my mom had been doing behind my back. Scott reached for the laptop, but I held my hand firmly on the trackpad. His face went pale, stammering, "Please." "I can explain," but I ignored him. All eyes immediately shifted between him and my mom. Her smile disappeared, replaced by a flicker of panic as she tried to defend herself. But every attempt only confirmed the truth. Guests whispered, some stepping away, others staring in disbelief. Friends who knew Scott and me as a couple looked horrified, realizing he had been betraying me with my own mother. The combination of shame, guilt, and exposure left both Scott and my mom unable to respond. After the slideshow ended, the room stayed tense. Some guests offered me support, while others made their way out, unsure of what to say. When there was nothing left to address, I made my exit. By the time I got home, Scott was already calling and texting nonstop, leaving frantic messages and long emails. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked his number and cut off all communication, making it evident I would never speak to him again. Nothing he said could undo what he had done. Not long after, his relationship with my mom ended. He withdrew from everyone's lives, deleting his social media accounts, moving out of the city, and cutting off all contact with friends and family, disappearing to avoid the backlash he knew was coming, while leaving my mom to face the consequences of her actions alone. With him gone, my mom showed up at my apartment, crying and begging for forgiveness. But I didn't open the door. I listened as her voice echoed down the hallway, fading little by little, until all that remained was the silence. In that silence, a complex mix of relief and exhaustion settled over me. What happened had been devastating, yet exposing the truth had given me a kind of closure that I needed. As I slowly adjusted to a new normal, it became clear that the bond between my mom and me had been permanently altered, and the closeness we once shared was gone. Months later, I rebuilt my life. I created routines that centered on my well-being and surrounded myself with people who truly supported me, letting myself focus on my work, my hobbies, and the small joys I'd overlooked before. Life felt steadier, more intentional, and I was finally moving forward without carrying the weight of past betrayals on my shoulders. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.